watching Dante's Boxing Nation.
ABEL got on said some crazy stuff about me. Like heavyweight, but I fought everybody at heavyweight. I ain't give a damn what weight nobody was. So I was just saying that I thought if you couldn't get a fight at middleweight, then go fight Warner and Cola. If you can't get a fight at middleweight, you got Danny Jacob. Okay, well, let's go fight middleweight for a belt. You want to be in the division if you can. Then you go find the next best fight. But don't go ahead and try to say, oh, you only fought Mike McCallum. I fought Mike McCallum because Mike McCallum needed it at the time. I gave back to Mike McCallum just to help Mike. I didn't fight Mike to take Mike as a real challenger. Duh. So don't play with me, Abel. I ain't do that. I fight for real. I ain't give a damn who you were.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So that right there was a clip or an interview that Roy Jones did with my man Hustle Boss. Shout out to Hustle Boss. I'll go ahead and put the link in the description box so you guys can watch the entire interview on Hustle Boss's channel. But yeah, that's what Roy Jones had to say in response to Gennady Golovkin's trainer, ABEL Sanchez. Now, as you guys know, I've been doing a lot of interviews with ABEL Sanchez lately. On one of the recent interviews I did with ABEL Sanchez, I asked him the question. I said, why do you think so many professional boxers and trainers are imploring Gennady Golovkin to either move up in weight or move up in weight and face the winner of Kovalev versus Ward, et cetera, et cetera? And he basically responded by asking me, how many fighters do you know that have moved up from middleweight to light heavyweight, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And Roy Jones' name got mentioned or brought up because Roy Jones, he did just that. Not only did Roy Jones do it, but Bernard Hopkins did it as well. Now, after the interview I had with ABEL Sanchez, we continued our conversation by way of text. And to further answer his question of how many middleweights do you know that have jumped up from middleweight to light heavyweight, I told him, I said, well, you know, Roy Jones and Bernard Hopkins, they both did it. Matter of fact, they both just recently said in interviews that, you know, they jumped up from middleweight to light heavyweight and fought tough competition, took risk. In ABEL Sanchez, he basically tried to discredit Roy Jones's resume by saying he fought fighters like Mike McCallum, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why Roy Jones is responding to ABEL Sanchez the way that he is, or the way that you just heard him on that clip I just played right there. But you know what I find so interesting is, you know, when you hear professional boxers criticizing other fighters, you know that they are sincere. You know they don't have some type of agenda. You know it's not propaganda. Like, for example, when you hear fans on the internet just saying ridiculous stuff that no one is really corroborating with, no legitimate people, right? No, you don't hear professional boxers or trainers agreeing with, you know, the ignorance you hear on the internet. But when it comes to Gennady Golovkin, if you notice, you are hearing professional boxers and trainers that have no personal hidden agenda. You know, they're not biased at all. They have no reason to be biased. So when you hear names like Julio Cesar Chavez, Paulie Ayala, Roy Jones, Bernard Hopkins, Robert Garcia, the WBO president, Teddy Atlas, Anthony Joshua, Ruslan Provodnikov, Paulie Malignaggi, you hear all of these different professional boxers and WBO presidents, you hear them saying these things. These guys, they come from all different walks of life, right? All nationalities, all different races and colors. And yet they're all asking the same questions. They're all demanding the same thing from Gennady Golovkin. And once again, these questions are coming from the professional boxing community, not just fans on the internet that have a personal agenda. okay? Now, we all know that right now, Gennady Golovkin, he's negotiating with Danny Jacobs, and that's a good move and a good look for Gennady Golovkin if he were to get that fight. But just like Roy Jones said in that interview, and I don't know if I played the part where he said it, but Roy Jones, he also said, you know, we know he wants the Danny Jacobs fight, but if Danny Jacobs is not going to fight you, move up and wait like I did and take the risk. Now, what's really interesting is it was only about a year ago when Team Golovkin, they were saying we're willing to fight anyone from 154 to 168. But now, all of a sudden, it's like they have done a complete 180, because now when you hear Golovkin talk, he's very adamant about staying at 160. He says it all the time. He says there's no reason for me to move up. I can make 160 comfortably. And then Abel Sanchez, his trainer, just recently started saying it. He said there's no reason to go up to 168. There's no one to fight there. But we all know that that's not the case. We all know that's not the case, because you have James DeGale. Once again, I mean, if Gennady Golovkin can fight Kell Brook, who is from the UK, and Gennady Golovkin, Team Golovkin, they jumped at the opportunity to fight the welterweight champion, Kell Brook. If they can fight the welterweight champion from the UK, Kell Brook, why can't they fight the super middleweight champion from the UK, James DeGale? If they can't get fights like Danny Jacobs, Billy Joe Saunders, or even, let's just say, hypothetically, Golovkin does get those fights. Let's say he cleans out the middleweight division. What does he do next? You already said you could fight anyone from 154 to 168, so why don't you start the next chapter of your story at a different weight class, 168. Now, I understand there's going to be some fans that's going to say, hey, man, the guy, he wants to clean up the 160-pound division. Matter of fact, he wants to stay there. What's wrong with this guy just staying at the 168-pound division? And I'll tell you, just like I told Abel Sanchez, at the end of the day, there is nothing wrong with staying at 160 if you want to. I mean, there's nothing wrong with facing lesser competition if a fighter hypothetically wants to do that for the rest of his career. But what it really comes down to is, how does a fighter want to be remembered? How do you want your legacy to look when you retire? Do you want to be remembered knocking out David Lemieux, or do you want to be remembered knocking out or beating James DeGale, Ward Kovalev winner, pound for pound, top 5, top 3 fighters? Or do you want to be remembered beating guys that weren't even in the pound for pound top 10? At the end of the day, you can fight whoever you want to fight. You could fight the weakest tomato can, or you could fight the pound for pound best fighter in the world. It's up to you. It comes down to how you want to be remembered. If Gennady Golovkin were to retire today at age 34, what wins would you say makes Gennady Golovkin one of the greatest fighters in the last 25 years? What defining wins would you say compares Golovkin to fighters like Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, Bernard Hopkins? Which wins would it be? Right? So that's the question at the end of the day. And, you know, I truly believe that Gennady Golovkin, eventually, he is going to face these guys. I think Danny Jacobs is a step in the right direction. Even Billy Joe Saunders, unifying those belts. I mean, those are not pound for pound champions, but it's a step in the right direction. I think if Gennady Golovkin really wants to be considered one of the greats, he would have to do that. He would have to clean out the middleweight division and then move up in weight and clean up the super middleweight division, because that's what people really want to see. We know that Gennady Golovkin is the strongest fighter at 160, hands down. He's the hardest puncher at 160. So it shouldn't be that much to ask for the hardest puncher to move up one weight class. You have fans that say that Floyd Mayweather is feather-fisted, but yet Floyd Mayweather moved up 5 weight classes. Manny Pacquiao moved up 8 weight classes. So surely one of the hardest punchers in all of boxing can move up 1 weight class, right? So, you know, we'll see, man. We'll see if this Danny Jacob fight comes to fruition. And, you know, regardless if it does or it doesn't, the next chapter in Gennady Golovkin's story should be moving up in weight. There are a lot of fighters at 168 that want to fight him, that are eager to fight him. I don't understand that. If Gennady Golovkin is looking for opponents, there's a lot of guys at 168 who want him, right? Roberto Ramirez, James DeGale, Badu Jack, the winner of Kovalev Ward. We know Ward still wants Golovkin. So there are a lot of opponents out there that not only are willing to fight Golovkin, but are willing to give Golovkin an opportunity to propel his career and improve his reputation of being one of the best fighters in the world pound for pound. Let's see what happens. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one.